What's going on? Welcome into My Take Is. Thank you for clicking on the video. Do me a favor and click subscribe as well. Patriots Broncos is your AFC Championship game, and everyone's writing the Broncos off for a very obvious reason. They don't have Bo Nix. Jarrett Stidham hasn't taken a snap in a non-preseason game in 2 years. Meanwhile, the Patriots are healthy, and they looked pretty good against a really good Houston Texans football team. And the pick here is pretty obvious, and I'm going with the obvious pick. I am taking the Patriots to win this football game because I just don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to do enough offensively without Bo Nix. So instead of me, for 8 minutes giving you all these points that you're already very well aware of, what I'm going to do instead is tell you all of the reasons why the Broncos could pull off the upset. It's going to be really tough for them to do. Because when a team is playing with a backup quarterback, there are two things that I want to look at immediately. Which, one of them, the Broncos are in pretty good shape with. One is the offensive line. A backup quarterback with a bad offensive line that's a recipe for disaster. You're not beating anybody worth their salt whenever you have a backup quarterback with the bad offensive line. Thankfully, the Broncos have, I think, one of the 5 best offensive line units in the NFL. They're going to be fine, giving Stidham time to sit in the pocket and throw the football. Also, Jarrett Stidham, he's not as good of an athlete as Bo Nix, but he can move around. He can buy himself, an extra second or two by escaping the pocket and doing those things. So I don't think this is going to be a game where the Patriots' defensive line just completely dominates like they did against Houston last week. Here's where the Broncos, I think, run into an issue. The next thing that I look at is how good are your wide receivers? I like the Broncos receivers, but this isn't some elite unit that's going to elevate Jarrett Stidham. Joe Flacco went from looking like, a 40-year-old playing quarterback in the NFL last year with the Colts. All of a sudden, he's in Cincinnati this year, and he looks great because he's throwing the football to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who are great players. When you go back and you look at the Eagles and their run to the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, where they beat the Patriots. Sorry, Patriots fans, that I had to bring that up. But they had multiple high-level receivers. Alshon Jeffrey was at his peak. Zach Ertz was in his prime. Nelson Aguilar was a really good player at that point in his career. Torrey Smith was the 4th best pass catcher on that team. Now, that was at the end of his career. He's 29 in that season, so pushing 30, but still, like a reliable guy. For the Broncos, Courtland Sutton, I think, is the only real difference maker on that team at receiver, and he's like a B-plus guy. I really like Troy Franklin, but he hurt his hamstring against the Bills. Pat Bryant, a rookie who I like, he got concussed against the Bills. They're both probably not going to play this week. So now you've got Marvin Mims Jr., who was the Broncos' 6th leading receiver during the regular season. He's your number 2 now. And to be fair, he played really well against Buffalo, had over 90 yards receiving. But they're going to have to rely on him heavily for the second week in a row. And I'm just not convinced that that's going to go very well for them. Evan Ingram, very capable of making an impact, but he's 31. The Broncos haven't relied on him a ton during the season. He only had 1 reception against Buffalo last week. I just don't know if the Broncos have the personnel at pass catcher to make up for the fact that Bo Nix isn't playing, especially against this Patriots secondary that I have been very complimentary of all year. Okay, Gonzalez, Davis, you can make a real argument that is the best cornerback duo in the NFL. So what does this mean? I mean, Sean Payton is going to have to call a great game, which he can do because he is Sean Payton. Okay, here's the thing with Stidham. That guy is not afraid. He's going to sling the rock. So those Bronco receivers that I just dissed are going to have a great opportunity to make me eat my words. I also think that Sean Payton is completely incapable of calling a conservative game. I don't think that that's in his nature. Like, they ran the ball well against Buffalo and still threw it 40-plus times. Jarrett Stidham is going to be given the opportunity to play quarterback. They're not going to ask him to manage the game and hand the football off to R.J. Harvey 30 times. That is not what's going to happen. They are going to give him an opportunity to throw the football and push it down the field. And when they do run the football, they're obviously going to have to be successful. It's going to be really tough to do against this Patriots front. With that being said, again, this Broncos offensive line is really good, and I do expect to see Stidham given the opportunity to let it fly throughout this game. But again, Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez, it's the best cornerback duo in the NFL. And so I think Stidham's going to struggle a little bit when he is given the opportunity to push the football down the field. With that being said, if the Broncos can run the football, look, they don't have to gash them for like 6 yards a carry, but if they can average, 4.5 to 5 yards a carry, and Jarrett Stidham can hit on a couple big plays down the field, then the Broncos are going to have a chance to win this game. Now, those feel like two big ifs, but it's true. If they can hit on a couple big plays down the field in the passing game, and if they can consistently run the football, they're going to have a chance. The Texans' defense played really well against New England last week. Their offense just turned the football over 5 times. I think the Broncos' defense is going to play well because this is the third best defense in football behind Houston and Seattle. Okay, the Texans generated a decent amount of pressure on Drake Maye. I think the Broncos are going to do the same thing. They lead the NFL in sacks over the last 2 years. Like, this team is elite at getting after the quarterback, and when you can get after the quarterback, you automatically give yourself a chance. The Patriots also didn't run the football very well against Houston. They did enough. With that being said, this Broncos defense is really stout against the run. I don't think that New England's going to gash this Broncos defense either, which means that this Broncos pass rush is going to have plenty of opportunities to put their handprint on the game. The Texans had a chance late in that game because of their defense. They just couldn't overcome the worst performance I've seen from a quarterback in a playoff game ever. 20 of 47 from C.J. Stroud. As long as Stidham isn't that bad, the Broncos are going to be in the game because of this defense. I think that they're going to get after Drake Maye. They've got really good players behind that front four, right? Obviously, Hufanga, Greenlaw, and Surtain are kind of the three-headed monster behind that group. I'm still a little concerned about Riley Moss and how he's going to hold up. But the rest of that defense, I think that you have to feel really good about. And I was looking at the line before the game. The Patriots are only favored by 4.5. There's a reason for that. I kind of thought that the line would be closer to 6.5 or 7 because the Broncos losing Bo Nix is a big deal. Okay, them also not having Troy Franklin or Pat Bryant, also a big deal. But for some reason, Vegas, who's way smarter than I am, only has the line at 4.5. Okay, I think that this defense for the Broncos gets after Drake Maye. I think they do a really good job defending the run. And I think that this Broncos defense is more than capable of carrying the Broncos to a win. They just have to get a big play or two from Stidham, and he has to avoid the C.J. Stroud-like performance against a great Patriots defense. Again, I like New England to win the game, but I do think that there is a path for Denver to pull what I would classify as an upset. With that being said, I like the Patriots to not only win, but I think that they cover that 4.5-point spread as well. They're just too well coached, I think, to lose to a backup quarterback in an AFC Championship game. I think Mike Vrabel is going to have his team so well prepared. McDaniel, their offensive coordinator, you could argue he's the best offensive coordinator in the sport. He's going to put Drake Maye in positions for him to make the plays that he wants for Drake Maye to make, and they'll be able to score more than enough points. I'm going to take the Patriots 24-17, somewhere in there. That feels right. Maybe you get a backdoor cover from Denver, and the Patriots only win 24-20. I don't know, but somewhere in that 24-17, 24-20 kind of range for this game. That's gonna do it for this video. Subscribe. Check out the rest of my stuff. I'll have something out on Rams Seahawks here in a bit.